listener production.
Hello, happy Friday and welcome to The Briefing. I'm Sacha Barbour Gatt. This weekend marks the official start of Schoolies celebrations, with thousands of kids bound for the sunny Gold Coast and dozens of other spots around the country. But they may not be celebrating in the way you might expect.
They're almost swapping beers for boost juices these days. And the cafes is where we've seen it. Like, they used to be ghost towns back in the day, but now they're full of schoolies doing their smashed over and lattes. It's quite amazing.
A deep dive into how schoolies are swapping wasted for wellness in 2025 is coming up after the headlines. So let's get into today's top stories with Chris Spiru. It's Friday, the 21st of November.
Hey Sash, and to you listening. The coalition's been dealt another blow with another leader now out of the top job. New South Wales Liberal leader Mark Speakman's become the third coalition state leader to fall this week after New South Wales National leader Dougal Saunders on Monday and Victorian Liberal Party leader Brad Batten on Tuesday. Now, unlike his Victorian counterpart who lost a formal leadership vote earlier this week, Speakman stepped down yesterday after facing internal pressure to do so, saying he tried his very best as opposition leader.
You've got to deal with the cards that you dealt with. And I've tried to deal with those cards as best I can, but it's come to a stage where I have to accept the inevitable. I'm not getting clean air. I'm not getting the oxygen.
Now, while he endorsed first-term MP and former TV presenter Kelly Sloan as his replacement, he did pin some of the blame on infighting among the federal Liberal Party, which he said did serious brand damage to the state branch. And Chris, it does look like the Liberal parties right across the country, as we've evidenced here with these state leaders stepping down, they're scrambling at the moment as their federal counterparts look to, hone in on what policies they want to focus on after thumping election defeats. It's echoing into the state chambers as well. It's quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, and we did do a deep dive on this. Tash did a deep dive on this on Tuesday. Hop back. We'll pop a link to that in the show notes. But interestingly, in his resignation speech, Speakman pretty much urged his federal colleagues and his Liberal colleagues to stick with some of the party values. So party values around the environment. The New South Wales Libs are at odds with the federal Libs because they support net zero. So he's drumming up support around there, saying we need to back multiculturalism and we need sensible policies to boost housing. So very interesting here. He's targeting Middle Australia. He's talking to Middle Australia. It'd be very interesting to see if the federal Libs pick up on that.
A man who allegedly led a neo-Nazi rally outside New South Wales Parliament has been arrested over the alleged harassment of a federal MP. Police had been looking into Joel Davis after a message on an encrypted platform called for thee and apologies in advance. This is extremely offensive. Rhetorical rape of Teal Independent Allegra Spender. It is understood New South Wales Liberal Kelly Sloan, who we just spoke about as the likely successor to lead the state opposition, was also named in the call to threaten the MPs after they condemned the rally staged by the National Socialist Network on November 8. Both women have reported receiving threats to police.
The AFP has confirmed it's arrested a 30-year-old man over the online message and charged him with using a carriage service to menace, harass or cause offence. He's expected to front a Sydney court today, and in a statement, the AFP says it supports freedom of speech and political expression, but let it be clear that any alleged criminal behaviour, including threats and harassment, will not be tolerated.
Now, Joel Davis hasn't been named by the Australian Federal Police as the person who was arrested. He has been identified in later reports by media, but he was the one who was actually talking about how the group is looking to infiltrate politics both in New South Wales and Victoria. We did deep dive that last week as well. So this story, while it's based in New South Wales, it has reach right across the country. And I think there's growing concern about the neo-Nazis and what they're doing and what they could do in the future as well. So, this arrest, while, it is going to go through the courts and going to go through legal proceedings, I think it's positive to see the AFP working in this space and looking to, stamp out any sort of harassment and targeting of our politicians by this group.
An inquest into Australia's first Christian terror attack will hand down its findings today, with hopes it'll shed more light on the motives behind it. It's been almost 3 years since two police officers, Rachel McCrow and Matthew Arnold, and civilian Alan Dare were killed by a trio of conspiracy theorists on a remote Queensland property. Stacey, Nathaniel and Gareth Train set a deliberate ambush for police on their Wiambilla property on December 12, 2022, and were later gunned down by officers.
It is believed the trio responsible developed a rare disorder of shared paranoid delusions after being radicalised online, believing that police were devils and demons and needed to be fought to bring on the second coming of Jesus Christ. But the exact motives for their crimes remain unclear, and that's something State Coroner Terry Ryan has been considering since hearings wrapped up last August, so a long time he's been looking into this. The findings today could also recommend changes to law enforcement procedures and policies that could reduce the chances of something like this happening again.
Overseas now and to South Africa, where Anthony Albanese has touched down in Johannesburg ahead of this year's G20 summit. Albo's become the first Aussie PM to visit the country in over a decade and is expected to use the weekend to push for stronger economic ties with leaders from India, Korea, Japan, Canada and Europe, putting out a statement yesterday saying that the G20 strengthens the global economy and thus benefits all Australians.
And it does look like discussions on our very long drawn-out trade agreement with the European Union will also happen on the sidelines of the summit, Chris. Now, apparently a number of key details have now been hashed out, including whether Australian brands should be able to name their products after things linked to particular regions in Europe. So things like Prosecco, Parmesan, Feta.
Yes.
The EU Trade Commissioner has partly credited the breakthrough in discussions with Australia to Donald Trump's tariffs, saying it's vital to work with like-minded countries in the current landscape.
Yeah, and speaking of the US president, he had initially said the US was boycotting the summit.
I'm not going to South Africa for the G20 because I think their policies on the extermination of people are unacceptable. So I'm not going, so I won't refer to anything having to do with South Africa. South Africa has behaved extremely badly.
So those discredited claims there, Sash, I know you were on mat leave and you missed the White House showdown where he invited the South African president in and showed him some clips of what he was claiming was the, forced extermination of white farmers in South Africa. But look, an update on that. According to South Africa's president, the US has changed their position and they actually want to come to this year's G20 summit, allegedly. And the South African government is actually working on the logistics to get them over there for the weekend. Now, look, if you're unfamiliar with the G20, this is that annual meeting of leaders, and they represent about 2/3 of the world's population and 75% of international trade. So, yeah, huge that Albo's there and interesting to see if anything comes out of it.
Yes, a Brisbane spot has been named on the top 10 list of the world's coolest streets, Chris. Montague Road in Queensland's capital has nabbed 6th spot, beating out cool locations in New York, Greece and Germany. And it is times like these that I'm sure we miss our intrepid Brizzy expert Tara Cassidy.
Yes.
Because, Chris, neither you or I can speak to the coolness of Montague Road.
Yeah, I didn't even know that this road existed, but if Tara was here, I'm sure she'd sell it for us and sell it for us well. But according to Time Out, which compiled the list, things like walkability, connectivity, food and drink offerings, nightlife, culture, fun, oh my God, the list keeps on going, and community spirit were all taken into account when choosing the streets. 31 all up were named, and the only other Aussie spot to score was Swan Street in Melbourne. I don't know if I'm familiar with Swan Street in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's in Richmond. Great street.
Okay, great.
Great street. I'll chuck in Enmore Road as my nomination for Sydney. Great food, the theatre. Yeah, lots of fun, Enmore Road.
And great kebab shops. Excellent kebab shops.
Yeah, actually, I know the one across the road from the Oporto.
Yes.
The best kebab shop in Sydney, I would say. And look, Chris, on that note, that is it for headlines for today and for the week. We made it. Coming up is my deep dive into Schoolies in 2025. You might be surprised by what they're getting up to. Have a listen next. When you think about schoolies or leavers, what are some of the things that come to mind for you?
I lost my virginity at Schoolies.
The entire group of 11 girls that I went with, we all came home with glandular fever.
My Schoolies week lasted Schoolies month.
I became a blonde on Schoolies.
Slept on the beach one night after an all-nighter at the beer garden, then lost my wallet. So then the police are calling my parents. They can't locate me.
Just getting very drunk, very messy.
Yes, since teenagers first started hitting the Gold Coast to celebrate the end of 13 years of schooling, the event has been synonymous with drinking too much and heading home with a regret, or 7. But fast forward to now, and the event is changing. No longer just a massive beach party on the Gourley. Schoolies celebrations now span beachside towns right across the country and have even reached Bali, Fiji and Vanuatu. And it's not just the location that's changed, with kids now choosing to swap booze for breathwork, hookups for hot yoga and mischief for matcha. Someone who has seen this evolution of Schoolies is Gourley. He's the founder of Red Frogs, a chaplaincy program he started in 1997 when he hit Surfers Paradise with a bunch of mates to help get drunk kids home and make sure they were staying safe. Andy, you have seen it all in your time looking after Schoolies over the last almost 30 years. Sorry to remind you it's been that long. But just how much has the event changed in that time?
Yeah, look, radically changed in that time. Back in the day, it was like the Wild West. There were punch-ons and fights and no diversionary activities, no support services apart from Rosies and Drug Arm. Back then in the day, they were real pioneers of this response nationally. And, we just rocked up in 97 and saw a need and gradually chipped away at it year after year. But it's chalk and cheese to what it was back in the day.
Yeah, so obviously people still want to get drunk and hook up at Schoolies. That hasn't changed. But are those people that are still doing that in 2025, are they getting into as much trouble as they used to when you first started attending and handing out Red Frogs?
Oh, no, there's been a massive culture shift and there's a real social justice, social welfare bent on this generation where back on the day they just let Jono sleep it off on the beach, cover him with sand and watch the seagulls peck at him. Now they're picking Jono up, walking him to the chill-out tent, sitting with him for 3 hours and walking him home. So there's an incredible looking after your mates culture in this generation that's made a huge difference to serious incidents and also so many more non-drinkers. It's just incredible. Probably 40, 50% are big drinkers now. They're almost swapping beers for boost juices these days. And the cafes is where we've seen it. Like they used to be ghost towns back in the day, but now they're full of schoolies doing their smashed over and lattes. It's quite amazing. So, yeah, there's been a massive culture shift. And probably the last 5, 6 years we've seen that.
And we will get into that a little bit more in a minute because I'm quite fascinated by swapping getting wasted for wellness in 2025 and in the 2020s for schoolies. But when it comes to the messaging around things like sex, alcohol, drugs, fighting, all of that, from governments, from local organisations, the work that you do with the Red Frogs, do you think that that is what has had an impact on this generation, or do you think it's purely generational shift and that, the priorities of these younger generations are different to what, yours might have been or mine?
A lot of credit has to go to a lot of the councils and state governments, police, AMBOs, not-for-profits, all around Australia. The response has been incredible as it's grown over the last probably 30 years that we've seen. And it's almost like they at a 10-pin bowling lane where you have bumper rails so you don't gutter out. Back in the day, there were no gutter rails. Kids would gutter out all the time. But now with so many support services, kids are still going to make dumb decisions, do dumb stuff, but the consequences are a lot less now, which is fantastic. So, look, there's still a lot of people drinking and, with the 50% that aren't, there's 50% that really are. And there's still the same safety messages around staying with your mates and also getting heaps of water into you while you're drinking. Probably in our triages, a lot of incidents of dehydration because alcohol dehydrates you. So not getting the water levels up is so important. And then some really simple stuff like food. I don't know if you've heard the term eating is cheating. You think if you don't eat, you get drunk faster, but then there's nothing to absorb the alcohol and it can get into the bloodstream so much quicker and then people just drop from it. So making sure you're eating well and then also staying with your mates too and that separation between the toolies. I think back in the day there was really no protection against toolies. They could come in and crash the party very easily. Now it's very hard for those hangers on because 90% of all arrests around Schoolies Week aren't actually schoolies. They're hangers-on and toolies. So all around Australia, police and organisations have made it so much safer.
I'm interested to hear more about what some of the new trends we are seeing for schoolies. You touched on it, the avo toast and the lattes, the cafes are pumping more so than the beach parties in some spots. What else are you seeing schoolies enjoying and using as a way to celebrate over, getting wasted at night?
Yeah, look, and the other side of the fence is what you're talking about, the culture shift, and in the next generation coming through, and they're definitely more health focused. They're definitely more, and we really thank professional sport in the nation of Australia for all their strength and conditioning and training they're doing at such a young age when they're 10, 11, 12, 13, when they get to 17, 18, they're just so much more intelligent and in tune with their body and recoveries. And so back in the day, it was the alphas that would dominate us. All your top school captains and sporting captains of all the different codes would dominate buildings. There, the alphas would be out of control and lead hundreds into that sort of lifestyle pattern. But now they're being more responsible. They're worried about the recoveries. They're worried about, skin folds. They're just so much more alert and aware. And it's almost alcohol shifted from primary to secondary, where back in the day, the primary goal was to wake up, passed out on a wheelie bin with peas and carrots on your shirt. Now it's the dance parties, the mates, the event, and then alcohol's still there, but it's secondary. So I think that shift from primary to secondary has really been a healthy shift in this young generation coming through, and the health revolution too, and also the cafe culture. That's been a massive thing where you can socialise with your mates around the lattes instead of beers. That breakup has been very healthy.
What about wellness influences? You talked about sport there, but we see every day we're exposed to, especially if you're a young person and you're on social media, even if you're an older person and you're on social media, it's wellness influences, it's yoga, it's breath work, it's mindfulness, it's meditation. How much of that culture is infiltrating schoolies where they're going, maybe we'll go to a party on Monday, but how about Tuesday, Wednesday, we go into a yoga retreat and do some meditation instead?
Yeah, look, for the first time ever, Red Frogs, we now have a designated day team, which we've never had a full day team before because of that shift in culture where there were so many more schoolies doing run clubs in the morning yoga, seeing the sunrise, out on the beach, doing the walking. It's quite amazing. And so we've actually got Red Frog run clubs, getting the schoolies out and doing a lot more in the mornings because the more we can wear them out during the day, the better it is at night time. So we are fully down for this incredible health and wellness revolution. So, yeah, that's been a massive shift. That's been a massive positive shift too, to get out and get your highs more naturally than artificially. And I think that natural wellness messaging really is getting through, and that's been a big part of shifting culture as well.
We went around and asked some of our colleagues what they thought of this kind of new trend of kids going to schoolies to partake in wellness activities like yoga, like, run clubs. And I would say 90% of them said, oh, that's lame.
That is not schoolies. I'm sorry. That's a Sunday when you're tired.
So boring. No, you've got to live your life, guys. Come on.
Like, seriously, go get pissed and do things that you regret.
That wouldn't have cut it back in 1988. Yeah, no.
What do you say to people who criticise the schoolies who are ditching, booze for breath work?
Well, this generation's going what you did back in the day is lame, going out, getting rid of $120 out of my account, waking up with peas and carrots on my shirt with my head feeling like a semi-trailer's hit it, wondering why there's a dent in my car. They're going, that's dumb. And we can save so much more money and be so more clearer and have a lot of fun without the use of the alcohol. So I think the generation's just different. They're just thinking different. For some, now you still got your Jonos and Chazzes, Jonos and Chazzes out there, the alphas that will go hard, and that is their thing, and we're there for them absolutely. But again, I think there's a culture shift where they're looking back at us and going, well, maybe that wasn't the smartest decision you guys made.
I'm interested, you mentioned the Bazzes and Shazzes or the like, still going hard. Do you think socioeconomic background in your upbringing has an influence in whether you're going to be a schoolie who goes out and gets wasted or if you're going to opt for the more health-focused activities? Or does it kind of span all different types of people, whether they're from, a lower socioeconomic background or maybe from somewhere more wealthy?
Yeah, we talking over 814 schools, all public and private, all different areas, all around all parts of Australia, and it really it doesn't discriminate from your more privileged, the ones that come from really challenging areas as well. That you've always got those individual personalities that will go hard in each school, and I guess from a more privileged school, they might have access to more expensive ways of doing that. And others don't. And so I think it doesn't vary really with the schools, whether it be private or public.
What do you think is the future of Schoolies then? And if these trends continue, are you worried that the Red Frogs will be out of a job?
Oh, look, that would be fantastic. I would love to be watching Test cricket for the next month and just putting my feet up for sure. But no, look, in saying the trend's going a more healthier way, Australia and New Zealand has some of the most hectic drinking culture in the world. So we're still right up there as, probably the most dysfunctional in this area. And alcohol still is our most dangerous drug as Aussies. It's a major factor in one-punch incidents and car accidents and homicides and violence and injuries and sexual assaults, suicide ideations and hospital admissions on weekends. So still alcohol for Aussies, even though we're doing better and it's going a great way, we've still got a long way to go around our use of alcohol. But again, it is trending the right way and we're loving it. We're loving to see that you don't have to drink to fit. And I think that's the thing, that there's a lot more confidence that you can just be who you are. And look, we're not anti-drinking as Red Frogs. We're just ending up in hospital. I mean, you can make, as an 18-year-old, you make any choices you want. That's up to you. It's a free country. But again, it's about getting wise and how does it affect others and how does it affect yourself, and start to think about the decisions you're making and learn, what you want to do as an individual. But don't be forced into stuff or lifestyle patterns that's not you just to be accepted. So I think there's a lot more confidence coming through the younger generation where they're really more confident in themselves to say no. And I think the art of saying no is such an essential skill set to have, particularly when you're young. For my generation, we didn't get that till we were 30. We were too afraid not to fit in, and we would be called soft, and you'd be forced down the beer bong or whatever. But this generation's grown up a lot earlier due to social media too, where they're becoming mature, and that's got its own issues as well. But in this case, there's some positives there as well.
Andy, you and your team have a massive few weeks ahead of you. I will let you go get to the Schoolies and Leavers. Thank you so much for talking to us on The Briefing.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
That was Red Frogs founder Andy Gourley speaking with me there. And that is it for this episode of The Briefing. Before you go, if you liked this chat, we'd love it if you could share it with a mate. It's a really easy way you can help us grow here at The Briefing. I'm Sacha Barbour Gatt. See you next time.